Okay, Milt, if you could just start off talking about how you came across this house and how you found out about Sparta.
Well, actually, the way I found this house is I'm a real estate agent, and I had a client that was looking for a large place to do like an assisted living home. So large places were on my radar, and I saw this amazing house. It was well outside the range of where he wanted to be. So I didn't show it to my client, but I decided to come take a look myself. And once I saw it with everything in it, all of the relics from the family that lived in here before, from the last 100 years, just had a very strong vibe to it. And I decided that I would go ahead and see if I could get it and fulfill my dream of having a place for artists to come together for workshops and retreats and stuff like that. So um, basically, the whole artist workshop thing was an excuse to get the house. But that's the direction I, of course, am going in with it.
And what was your thought as soon as you stepped into the house? Did you realize that you wanted it right off the bat, or did you have to think about it a lot?
I had to think about it. You know, when I first stepped in, it reminded me a lot of American Horror Story, the first episode, The Murder House, because it was kind of dark and creepy, and all the furniture is here, was here. Um, but it was just so thick and strong, the atmosphere. Um, I was looking at another house too, but the more I thought about it, the more obvious this one was, and also not just because it resonated with me, but there were practical reasons. The exterior walls are sort of a type of tabby, not really tabby, but they're concrete with pebbles, so there's no painting required. There's no wood clapboard. It's really easy to maintain, and it's got a metal roof, which is a little easier than the shingles. So that sort of sealed the deal for me. As far as the history of the house goes, one family lived here for about 100 years, the Gasserts. I think they moved in around 1920. The house was built in 1918-19, actually by a Rosier family member next door. But he died before the house was complete, as happens, it seems like, in most of these old house stories. And so the Gasserts moved in, and they eventually bought it from the bank. And let's see, we've got the original couple that lived here, Ms. Gassert. I call her Grandma Gassert. She was actually born out at the Glenmary Plantation in the 1890s. And then the next generation would be the one that really left the most influence on the house. That would be John Gassert and Marguerite, his wife, who married into the family in 1939. I know all of this because everything was left in the house, including like newspaper notices for marriages and obituaries, etc. I know of, let's see, two people that died in the house. Actually, I think three. One of the sons from Grandma Gassert died in 1933 of the flu here. And then, of course, Mr. Gassert, who lived here the longest. Marguerite's husband died here in the front room in the 80s. And then there, probably Mr. Gassert Sr., he died in 1940, and it was probably in the house. I know his funeral was here in the house. But yeah, there's just a lot of memorabilia here, scrapbooks, letters, photographs, furniture, just kind of crazy, everything that was left behind.
And could you talk about some of the things that you found in the house?
Well, one thing, well, one of many things, I mean, just a gazillion things, but one thing that was interesting was a phone directory from 1918. It basically is just one sheet with some names listed on it and some numbers. And then the back of it, has tips on phone etiquette, like how to use a telephone, which is pretty funny. The scrapbooks, yearbooks. There were three kids that were born in the house. Each one of them had 4 yearbooks. Lots of photographs. Let's see, slips from different hospitals. When you're discharge papers, credit cards. I did find some Gone with the Wind tickets and letters and and some books from the Nichols family that were out at Glenmary Plantation. Just, it was, I threw away a dumpster, a large dumpster of just stuff. And then I kept lots of stuff. The place is pretty much bursting at the seams with stuff. Mrs. Gassert, or Marguerite, she toyed around a lot with artistry, I guess you would say, or she dabbled in painting and drawing, and I know she sent off for a Melloway course on sketching, and there's a portrait, I think it's of her. I know that she had something to do with it because it was her style to go over everything in the end with pastels, like pastel chalks, and touch things up, and she did that to the portrait. She also did some replicas of some pictures, some just decorative pictures. But the main thing she left behind were a series of Andy Warhol style photos. She would take like a picture of her father and make 20 copies of it, and then do each one differently. She would use some sort of a shellac on one, and then the next one she would paint on it, and it looked like maybe used fingernail polish or something. Her daughter might have helped her with some of these, I'm not sure. And then the next one, would be a slightly different skin tone she would use. So at the end of the day, you've got like a dozen different renderings of her father. Like I said, sort of Andy Warhol style, the same picture but different colors. It's really very interesting, and these are all over the house, and I'm pretty sure it was Marguerite that did it.
Okay, and when was the last time that the Gassert family lived here?
I want to say probably Marguerite was here, Mrs. Gassert was here as recently as '07. I'm sorry, probably '06, '07, something like that. And then the house was vacant since then. She lived a bit longer, but she was in a home, and it was just her after her husband died in the late '80s here. Occasionally, her daughter would visit, but it was pretty much just Marguerite there for probably the last 15 years or so.
Have you heard anything about her from people in the area? Did they talk about the family at all?
From what I gather, she was quite a character. She was set in her ways and was opinionated about certain things that weren't always popular opinions, perhaps. And but she was very eccentric. She stayed in the house, and her main focus was genealogy of her family. She worked for years and years on the genealogy of her maiden name of her parents' family, and compiled a book about that. And she also compiled a book of essays written mostly by her husband for the local paper that were basically reminiscent stories, memories, anecdotes from the area. She was very interested in history and the founding fathers, and her I guess pedigree, tracing it back to New England and I suppose the Mayflower or something like that. But that was her main focus, was her research.
And what is it about Sparta? How does it differ? I mean, obviously it's different than Atlanta, but talk a little bit about what Sparta, what makes it unique, and how you feel here compared to how you felt in Atlanta.
Well, Sparta is it has a very specific feeling to it. It's sort of a ghost town in some ways. Main Street, it's about 80% vacant or more. And since it is so, I would say economically depressed in the area, because there's really nothing except the prison and going to Milledgeville for a job. There's not much to do here economically, and so the homes and the properties have not evolved that much in the last several decades. So there are a lot of historic homes here. The good thing is they're still here. The bad thing is because of lack of money or attention, a lot of them are in dire need of preserving. But it's just a different society, different world here, and you know, it's charming. They put a Mr. or Miss in front of your first name, like I'm Mr. Milt. You know, everybody is Miss Susan or whatever. It's just a different world from Atlanta. Actually, there's nothing to do here except hang out in your cool old house, and I kind of like that. But yeah, it's a different world. It's just like a different time period, a different energy, and a lot more relaxed when you have to go to the grocery store. It might take you longer to get there, or it might be a longer distance to get there, but it sure is a lot more peaceful than navigating the roads of Atlanta and the traffic when you're sort of stuck.
Okay, and tell me what your vision is for this place.
Well, the reason I got the house, which I now call Frognolia Hall because of the frogs and the magnolias here, is really to provide a space for groups to come in, ideally, you know, artist groups, but also anybody else that just wants to come. There are 6 bedrooms upstairs, and then downstairs, you know, a nice dining room and living room and arts and crafts room. So it's really a place for people to come together, have, you know, mainly to have like a guest workshop instructor, whether it's in writing or painting or photography or hopefully music, screenwriting. I just want the place to house groups that are working on things like this, you know, for 3-day weekends or however long it is. You know, that's really the purpose of it. I just wanted to create a unique experience, and I guess for selfish reasons too, I get a lot from that energy, and also I think it can be a memorable, inspiring experience for the participants.
What is it about this house, this space, that you think benefits the Arctics community?
Well, for one thing, it's not just a big house with rooms. The house tells a story, and most people are really fascinated by the story, you know, because there is so much of the previous inhabitants here. So there's a rich narrative to the house itself. And like, you know, my bedroom actually has like cleaver marks or knife marks on it. You know, you don't get that in most houses, and there are stories behind, you know, most of the things that you can find here, and people are just fascinated with that. And I tell them about the characters that lived here, and you know, if something spooky happens, they usually attribute it to the characters, and we've had some incidents, you know, while groups were here. So it's just a fun, rich, atmospheric experience, and also the fact that you're going to get really crappy cell phone reception kind of helps. People are encouraged to turn off their devices. There is some internet here, but if everybody's, you know, using it at once, it's not super fast. So it really is a retreat. It's a getaway, and it's not just the house itself. The groups usually end up doing like a walk around town if the weather is nice, and taking pictures. It's like a great photo op, you know, tour of the old properties and the old buildings, and just a lot of interesting things to document around here. Well, here at Frognolia, it's not just the house. There's an acre that comes with it. I am in town here, so this isn't like some isolated home out in the country. The town is isolated, but on the grounds here, there are probably a dozen really old pecan trees that actually should probably be put down, but I don't have the means or the desire to do that completely, because it does create a great atmosphere. There's lots of old growth, different kinds of berry bushes and berry producing trees. In fact, right now the property is being swarmed by robins in the winter, going crazy, eating the holly berries and the berries off of other trees that I have no idea what they are. But there are all kinds of different flowering plants, and there's a Chinese, it's not dragon fruit, but something like that, a little citrus fruit that comes from it, but on a giant thorned bush. And there's evidence of the inhabitants from the last 100 years working in the yard. It's just a really interesting place, and even though it's just an acre, it does create a buffer against the rest of the world out here. It's pretty private. I'm originally from a small town in Alabama, Arab, Alabama. After college, I ended up teaching English in Japan, and worked for Fuji Television for a while as a coordinator for Fuji Television shoots that would come to the States. I've always been interested in film. I started, playing with a family movie camera when I was in the 6th grade. It was a very long time ago. But I've always been, tinkering with film and interested in the arts and silent film in particular. I made a movie based on a Japanese fairy tale 20 years ago, and that opened up some doors for travel and some other opportunities to get involved in film. And so I do real estate now, like I said, but film and the visual arts. I enjoy doing mixed media art, are really what interests me the most. And getting this house was an opportunity for me, I feel like, to settle down and create an atmosphere conducive to creativity. And that's all with the aim of me making another film. Actually, I've started working on a script inspired by the house. It's a short film at the moment, but it may bloom out to a longer feature film or featurette, who knows. The film that I did make a long time ago is based on a Japanese fairy tale, because I did live in Japan and was exposed to, mythology there. I decided to make a silent film because I'd always been fascinated with silent films since I saw Napoleon at the Fox Theater in 1981 with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. So I found a camera, a hand crank 35mm camera, the same style that was used in the 1920s, from a collector up in North Carolina. And I didn't shoot the film. A cinematographer named Jonathan Mellinger did. But it was just a fantastic experience, adapting a Japanese story to the States, and working with friends and volunteers, and it was really neat. And so the film is silent, and there is an amazing score written for live performance, written by Ann Richardson. And recently Brian Mitchell has sort of taken that original score and interpreted it into a smaller arrangement, so we don't have to have a kettle drum and a harpist, etc. But yeah, we always screen it with live music, and it's just been a great experience. The name of the film that I made is called Claire, as in Claire de Lune. It's about a girl from the moon, and actually there's an animated feature called The Moon Princess that's based on the same story that came out a few years ago. I was before that, of course. But yeah, movie making is basically 95% hard work and planning, and then 5% getting the funds. The hard work, of course, isn't on my own. It's with everybody else that's involved, working really hard. But I think that's the main thing I learned. You just have to chill, lay it all out, and storyboard everything and make plans. And you can't plan too much when you're taking on a project like that. When so many people are involved, you have to bring it all together. That's probably the biggest takeaway I have from making a film. I've done smaller films since then, short films, and it's the same thing. You really have to just live it for however long it takes to make it. We screened at over a dozen international film festivals, and an additional 4 or 5 screenings, around the South here. Rescreening the lawn in Brussels and Montreal, Tampa, Brive, France, Braunschweig, Germany. It's just been fantastic, and the relationships and the doors that have been opened because of it have just been a tremendous gift. Actually, I think on the strength of Claire, I was able to participate in the Sundance Writers and Producers Lab, Writers, Director, and Producers Labs with another project that ended up not getting developed. But still, it was a wonderful experience. People wrote me personal emails, about the effect it had on them, and letters and such. So I feel like it was a success on a lot of levels. Okay, well, come on in here. This is the library hall. We have a reading area in the hallway here, with some seats and plenty of books. Some of the books came with the house. God, there were 1,000 books here, more than that. But most of the books are from my private collection. Heavy on the arts, heavy on the biographies. This is one of Hollis Gillespie's books. She is a writer that teaches workshops here on a regular basis. She's really funny, and she's got some stuff going on right now that's really cool. This is my bedroom door. I won't go into detail here, but you can see there are some hack marks on the door. There was some drama in the house way before I came along, and I'm reminded of it every time I go to bed. Right there. Secrets. Come on in here, and this is a piano very much like the original piano that was here, but this piano was made in 1918. Did not come with the house. It is a friend's piano, but it's being kept here, and it's just got a brand new tune job, so it's in great condition for musical retreats, lounge singers, whatever. And this is the foyer. It's interesting. I don't know when this happened, but it's been at least since the 50s, because I've seen pictures. The wallpaper was torn to look like a landscape, and then the wall was painted to look sort of like clouds. I don't know why. It actually looks like it's been burned around the edges. It's very strange. I don't know why someone did that, but I have a clue as to who it was. It's probably the matriarch. But it's been this way a long time, so of course I've just left it. We'll just leave it there. And here is the living room. It's got the original wallpaper from the 20s.
And are these things on the wall, are those your pictures, or did they come with the house?
Some of them came with the house. That came with the house. I think that's Mr. Gassett there from the photo booth. Probably half the stuff in here came with the house. That's some of my collage art, my Rusty Doodad art on the wall there. You can see I've got lathing from plaster walls and some barn wood and photos and stuff. This is the room where we, you see there are a lot of sofas in here. This is the room where we watch films, during retreats, talking about screenplays and writing and stuff like that. It's a good gathering spot. We can comfortably seat about 10 people in here. And you've got more seating here where people break off into teams and work on projects together. Here's the dining room. It's kind of a mess right now. I'm not crazy about this brass chandelier, which is new-ish. So I found this period appropriate light fixture that's going to go up there when I get around to it.
And where'd you find that?
At a Goodwill. and it's completely intact, and it's from the era, because it's similar to the one that is original to the living room. And all of this came with it. This is an amazing marble topped buffet that came with the house, and I can't even. This door is still locked. I don't even know what's in this behind this door here. Maybe it's a skull or something. And this came with the house. This wallpaper is amazing. It's also original. So let's see. Let's go back into the art room. Yeah.
Are we allowed to film the matriarch or not?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I believe this is Marguerite, the matriarch. Her son said that he didn't think it was her, but it just doesn't make sense. I just think it's not a perfect likeness, but it was made by Marguerite, I'm pretty sure, because it has her signature chalk marks on it, or pastel marks on it, which has been sealed. So I think it was a self-portrait of sorts, but we don't always hammer out. Stop and stop and stop and stop and stop and stop and stop. So back in here, this was the library, and all the lamps are off, but now this is the art room. This is where we have groups of people that come in here to do art projects. You know, there's a water paint, it's not water paint, what's it called? Watercolor. Watercolor paint class. There's a teacher that comes in to do that. I'll also teach my Rusty do that art in here. Plenty of room, plenty of storage. And this was originally the library. Some of the books from that are actually in here, but most of the stuff, there's Claire, the old movie I made a long time ago. Most of the stuff in here, of course, is art supplies. That came with the house. These sketches came with the house. I think one of the sons did that. Table came with the house. This is, yeah, scary. Actually, the scary doll was a gift. But this is a poster of a Claire screening in France, in Brive, France. That was a really great experience.
What was the great experience?
Well, just being in this small medieval town in France with your film being the headliner.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And I guess you can go upstairs.
Okay, sure. We'll go in the bathroom here first.
Yeah, check it out. The bathroom, it is what it is right now, but I'm going to eventually seal the peely paint and do it up a little tighter in here, but for now this is what it is. There was wallpaper here. It's really not just black floral wallpaper. Steps that will give you buns of steel after a while. I've been told. I'm still waiting for it to happen. And I put these little caution strips for myself, actually. This is the boys' room. And you're free to come in here because I just finished finessing it, except for these nails. But this room is pretty much done, except I need another set of curtain brackets, curtain holdbacks. But this is, that was not here. But this is his fishing pole, one of the boys' fishing poles. You see with the float. This was their television. Of course, it was the family's remote control television. There's actually a cord that comes out with an off-on button. And this was one of the boys' radio. This was his ham radio from the 50s that he made. High school diploma. This is from a train set. Unfortunately, the train was not here, but the tracks were. You know, but this is his little Boy Scout uniform, and it's tiny. They must not have had Cub Scouts back then. I bet you it was just all Boy Scouts. It's tiny. So yeah. And the other bathroom is right above the downstairs bathroom. We've got a peacock in honor of Flannery O'Connor, who lived in Milledgeville, not far from here. Those are actually vintage matches that don't work. And all of this is kind of all messed up right now, but you get an idea. I'm working on this room a little bit, and then somebody stays in here sometimes.
And what are these drawings from?
These pictures of the gentleman with the different colorings on him, that would be that's the father of Marguerite, who was sort of the matriarch of the house. And she would have multiple prints made of photos and then do them up Andy Warhol style differently, each one with different paints or colored pencils or pastels. It's a cool bed that was here.
This painting over here come with the house?
Oh yeah, that's her same style, her signature style, except it looks like his mouth has been eaten off.
All right.
I didn't realize his seat path was here. This is the Liberace room. Again, pardon the clutter. Things are being. I'm working on a couple of things in the rooms in between retreats. Got another one coming up in a week and a half. The furniture was in here, like that roll top desk, because it's not going anywhere. But the look and everything is completely mine.
All right.
I don't know if you can see this, but this is kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
This is an old moviola, which was used for film editing. This was 35mm film editing. And Over there behind all that junk is the camera that was used to shoot Claire. It's a Mitchell hand crank standard. And this is Ceresa's room. This was the daughter. Again, in the middle of changing sheets, sorry. More hand-colored photos. And this is like what I was talking about. These are 4 years of this, 4 years of the daughter's high school there, and some of her Harlequin romances. This is her old swimsuit. More colored portraits.
Okay.
And let's see. It's a rat in here. This is like my office. This is the sleeping porch, and I've sort of commandeered it as an office area, but it is another bedroom when it's gussied up. It overlooks the backyard. Super peaceful. You can hear how quiet it is. I actually picked these up in Germany when I was over there with Claire. And this is a little piece of memorabilia here. This is Sally Field getting an Oscar for Norma Ray, and this is the clock from the factory where the textile factory scenes were shot in Alabama.
And how'd you come into that?
Oh, I've got friends.